things. I'm hello Ademola, hello Eka, hello everybody else.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm a lecturer in drama at Ulster University in Northern Ireland. Not from Ireland, as some people might be able to recognise from my accent. I'm from Australia originally, but I've been here for, well, over 20 years. And we have with us people who study drama at Ulster University and people who are currently studying drama, as well as theatre makers and drama students or theatre students from different institutions in Nigeria and other people from other walks of life. And I met Jerry, I think it was 2014. 2015, was it? Yeah. I met Jerry in 2015 at an Inja Congress event, which is now called the Inja Network of people who do youth arts and conflict transformation. And it includes arts organizations and theatre companies, Africa, India, Palestine, Brazil, China, Kosovo, Greece, Cyprus, England, here, Canada, others that I can't remember, sorry. And since then, you know, we've encountered each other at other events like Theatre for Young Audiences events and so on. And we've been holding these online digital cultural exchanges since May last year, where we had students of mine who'd written plays and poems and stories about their life growing up in Northern Ireland since the Good Friday Agreement. And Jerry got students and playwrights who'd written pieces about growing up, living under COVID. And we exchanged and we did workshops. And then since then, participants have said that they want to keep doing it. And we've had it about whatever topic the people who join us are interested in. And we've had sessions on mental health for theatre and arts professionals and students. We've had sessions on surviving and making it, you know, how does one survive financially as an artist. We've had sessions on theatre for young audiences and digital theatre. And the last session we had just before Christmas was a wonderful presentation by 3 artists from Brazil about digital theatre that they'd made under lockdown, own homes with stuff that was lying about for children. And they were very, very beautiful pieces. And that was with the involvement of Acetege Brazil, who are Theatre for Young Audiences Association. So we then said, why don't we ask somebody who does digital theatre from Northern Ireland? And we've been speaking to Zoe from Big Telly here, who has very kindly agreed to join us, even though she's in the midst of a fairly hectic production of a piece of digital theatre called Operation Elsewhere. And so that's me, and that's Zoe Zeaton. Jerry, do you want to say a few bits, few words before we hear from Zoe?
Yeah, basically, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Zoe, for joining us, for agreeing to join us in spite of your very tight schedule. This started like Matt just said, you know, like we say in Nigeria, like play, you know, just let's come together, let's do something. What can we do together? And I was able to draw some of our members of the Arojah Royal Theatre and some younger persons together. And I mean, so far, I think we have had like 7 sessions, you know, between May and now, only about 7 sessions that, I mean, those who had participated wanted it to go on, even though it was meant to just be like a one-off, you know, once in a while kind of stuff, you know, at the initial stage. But a lot has been taken away from here. And in the last 3 editions, sessions, 3 or 4 sessions, we open it up. And we have had more and more people other than Northern Ireland and Nigeria joining us. You know, we have had people from Norway, from Brazil, from the US, from, you know, joining this session. And I still expect that some of them are also able to join this. So we are very pleased to have you, Zoe. And this is particularly interesting for us, let me say, because of the time we are in, and every other thing is moving the way of digital theatre. Like Matt said, we had a session where Vivian shared with us, you know, a lockdown production of a digital theater in a session before now. I mean, quite interesting. As we speak, we are presently working on showing that production to school students in Nigeria as part of our celebration of the World Day of Theatre for Children, which is on the 20th. So on the 23rd, we'll be showing acting, which has some kind of connection to Nigeria, because the title of the production itself is a Nigerian name. So, I mean, those are the kind of collaboration that has come out of this session, and we are looking forward to do more. So we believe that, getting to have this conversation with Big Telly of your experience of some of this production will go a long way to also help, our own development in terms of, shifting from the regular theater to digital theater, which is still a little bit of a challenge around this part of the world. So having said that, like I have Dr. Jack here from Nigeria, who is a member of NNIRCEP, an immediate past executive of the NNIRCEP. NNIRCEP is National Association of Nigerian Theater Arts Practitioners. Barely everyone that is present here actually belongs to NNIRCEP. I have Kausi Sochukwu Ebo here, who is like—
Who did you say is the past executive?
Huh? Yeah.
What did you say?
No, strong.
We have Kausi Sochukwu here, who is like immediate past president of the Nigerian Theater Students Association. We call it NUTASA. Kausi is here. Oh, okay. So I have someone you should also meet in the house. There is Philip Agbeze. Philip Agbeze is the curator of an art center in Nigeria that is called CAVIC, that is Creative Arts and Imagery Center. Philip is here, and there is Ugo Chukwu from Maestro Theatre, who is here, artistic director. Maestro Theatre is here. Eka, like we have said earlier, Eka Teresa is here with us, and of course, my Oga Kotokota is in the house. Patrick Jude Ote. Dr. Patrick Jude Ote is the artistic director of Just Repertory Theatre, and of course, the founder and artistic director of the 15 years, if not more, 15 years old Just Festival of Theatre. So we have Dr. Patrick Jude Ote also in the house. So these are those of us from these parts of the world in the house. And I think others will join us, and then we see how this goes. Thank you.
Okay, so well, that's a wonderful lineup of fantastic people to be talking to. I know Zoe is in the midst of working on the production. Yeah. So perhaps we should go straight into hearing from Zoe about Big Telly and about its most recent work, particularly in the field of digital theatre. I have your clip lined up. Zoe, do you want to start by sharing that?
I think so. I think it might give more context, if that's okay.
Okay. I'll share the screen, and then I need to share sound as well. So that's it. Oh, or did I? I'll just change that. It was sharing sound. Oops, sorry. I'll have to try that again. It was all going so well. So let's share again. And now I've closed the box. It was all lined up and good to go. I should have just pressed play. Yeah. But I was checking. So hold on. Big Telly. Open it. Pause it. Shrink it. Come back here. Share it. There it is. Share. Check that I'm sharing sound. Check that out. Here, I'll play it. Tell me if you can hear the sound. Is it good?
No sound.
A wee bit louder.
No sound.
So you couldn't hear the sound?
Sound, yeah, we can't hear the sound.
No sound.
That's okay.
Okay, try that again. Share and more and share sound. Okay, so it should be grand now.
Good.
Okay, fabulous. Thanks a million there for that, Zoe. So you've been busy.
Yeah, I think we've done 9 productions since lockdown and 2 remounts, and we've now got 3 more before the end of March. So it has been a very, very busy time and an exciting time for production we've done. Is probably what I've loved about digital theatre, is the ability to create work quite quickly and to respond to a public mood. You know, prior to lockdown, we would have planned tours quite a long time in advance, and this has given us a much better opportunity to be responsive to where we feel our audiences and our communities are. We started 3 weeks after lockdown, our first show, The Tempest. And I think that was interactive. Our work is all interactive in the real world anyway. So we realized that recording something was never going to work for us. And the response to The Tempest was extraordinary, because people were saying, we want to be a community together, and it gave people the opportunity to actually be together in a virtual community. So we had people, coming back and booking with, 6 other parts of their family who were dotted around the world, because they all wanted to be at the same show and they wanted to connect. And we had people saying, we want everyone we've booked for everybody in our street because they want to all come together. So I think what was most exciting for us was that potential of digital theatre to create communities out of its audiences. And constantly throughout the process, we've been very much in contact with communities that we would work with in Northern Ireland, but a global community as well, and in dialogue with audiences. So our next piece, Operation Elsewhere, which we're remounting, was very much about escapism and adventure and interactivity. And then we did The Machine Stops, because that was a story written in 1907 by E.M. Forster about a world emerging out of isolation. And that was just at the time when the first lockdown was lifted. And we felt that the themes of that piece were really, really resonant. And then it was the summer and families were unable to do what they usually could do. So we made a virtual theme park. called Alice in Wonderland, working with AI companies and game designers and lots of different kind of collaborators on that. And then we made Macbeth, which was very much for Halloween. It was about light a fire, light a candle, turn down the lights, a very different kind of wintry kind of spooky experience. And then we made a piece in the real world called Right Up Your Street, which happens in neighborhoods with actors visiting homes, but it also has a finale and it has a digital element because the audience are linked by WhatsApp, and there's an AR experience that happens within your home. And then in January, we were supposed to do Right Up Your Street again, but COVID restrictions, even though it is the perfect lockdown show, made it difficult. So we created these cook-along experiences called Recipes for Disaster, which were very much about trying to answer what we felt was a need from the people we were talking to about wanting to have fun and be together. So the kind of objective of that was for people to cook together. We have previously worked with a professional chef. So we created these kind of recipes, and the kind of narrative was a wedding, and the audience or wedding guests invited to the wedding to make their own desserts or to make their own food. And then there was a kind of 80s disco, and there were flash mobs, and they were very much about people getting together and having fun. So each piece has kind of scratched a different itch in what we felt the world needed at that time, or what we felt the communities we were working with needed.
There was that interactive show as well. I can't remember what it was called, but we were telling the couple who just moved in together whether they should stay together or talk to the.
So that's a piece called Dear World, which was there was a clip of in black and white where the audience decided the narrative. So the audience, so the characters asked the audience questions, and the audience decided what they should do, and that was very much about us wanting to see how we could, because we felt we'd really explored digital theatre as an entertainment medium, but in terms of participatory decision making, social justice, social reform, some of the other issues we're interested in, we wanted to see how the form could be stretched to include that. And yeah, that was so we remounted that several times, and that's kind of going forward into the future. We're using it as a different way to engage people in conversations about narratives and what should happen next, and advice. And
yeah, it was a great use of the polling function on Zoom. Every now and then there would be a break, and there was a narrator, I think, which was very helpful. The narrator would be engaging with the audience directly, and sometimes we'd be engaging with the characters directly to make decisions about what was going to happen next, which I say was a big ask of and a great achievement by the performers to have the story of the play switch on ahead on the whim of the audience. But it was incredibly engaging in that sense. And before we were joined by everybody else, you were sharing with us some of the challenges of making digital theatre online. Do you want to sort of maybe talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced and some of the ways you've been able to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, all our digital theatre has been created by teams working remotely. So everybody's in their own home. So, as the kind of format has evolved, at the start, it was very much about making out of what was in your home. But now we're working more closely with designers who send packages and send ways of creating sets. We use a mixture of kind of virtual backgrounds and practical sets. We're very interested in kind of puppet making and shadow work and theatre, and how it feels like theatre rather than film. So designers and makers we'd work with increasingly, and they kind of send pieces. But yesterday we were doing a tech run of Operation Elsewhere, and one of the actors who's performing from Wales, we completely lost him, and his computer had packed in. We had to courier another laptop to him, and we were also working with an app, with a vision mixing app called vMix. vMix, yeah. And the reason why that came about was the director of Channel 4 News, which is a TV station here, came to see The Machine Stops, and he said, I love what you're doing, but I would also like to suggest this package which would make some of what you're doing easier. And that's about how you can vision mix people. So if I could as well to create some kind of audio. And yeah, it's a kind of tool which is useful to work with, but you know, with limited potential.
So the vMix app, was that how you got people who were in different rooms to appear to be next to each other when you did Macbeth?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was
right. And how did you compensate for the time lag effect? Because I didn't notice the time lag effect when they were.
It's about making sure that the vMix person isn't speaking at the time you're seeing them. So it's quite tricky to kind of direct to make sure that the person who's speaking isn't in a vMix mix at the time they're speaking.
Well, you covered that up masterfully because I didn't even notice until now when you told me. That's right. Well, there you go. We've got good morning from Egbo Chaos Sisochukwu Joseph. Sorry if I've mispronounced your name. Egbo, would you like to ask a question of Zoe? I mean, this is the whole thing about this event has always been, it's led by the people who join us. Everybody has a question. We've done things where we've been doing a drama workshop led by me or Jerry or Professor Ola or Sean. And it's just turned into a conversation about what life is like in Northern Nigeria. So that's what this is all about. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Zoe about her work with digital theatre online? If not, we'll just continue to dominate the conversation. Philip has a hand up.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Hello.
We can hear you, Philip. Yes.
Nice presentation, Zoe. So I was wondering, with vMix, do you have people who have trained on how to use it, or you're learning as you go along? And how has it really changed the way you are presenting online? Is it worth getting? Is it something that would really enhance people trying to do theater across board? Do you need any serious technical skill to be able to operate this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, Philip. Lovely to meet you. So vMix, so there is another package we use called ManyCam, which is free, and you can get a free trial of, which has things like you can do some of what you can do on vMix, and you can share, like I could share my gallery view so that everybody's gallery view would be the same if you wanted to create a composite image, you know, things like that. vMix, now there are two different levels to vMix. I think it's quite expensive, and we one production we worked on, we bought the more expensive license where you could vMix 8 people into a call. So basically, if I wanted you to be on vMix and to be able to move you around the screens, you would have to dial in on a separate device. And then I would have to have a monitor which showed you on that separate device. So it does have technical kind of implications. Now we've learned everything as we went along. We didn't have anyone who knew what they were doing, apart from the lovely guy from Channel 4 who brought us into a call and said, this is how you do it. But my technical person, I'm sure, would be happy if I can put my email address in chat. I'm sure she would know much more than me. You know, I'm a kind of pretender in this technical world, but I definitely put my email in, and we can follow up that conversation.
All right, fantastic, great, thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Zoe. Eka, I got the impression you were wanting to say something there, or was that?
Oh no, not really.
Oh, really?
Okay, I do want to say something. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I actually want to know, naturally, how has the response been audience-wide? Yes. How has the response been, reception to your plays and the work in general?
Reception of the plays and the work in general, Zoe. How's the
I mean, I suppose it's been extraordinary, Eka. You know, that's kind of why we've kept on doing it. So we did The Tempest. We were going to do 6 performances, and it ended up doing 22, and that's because we had waiting lists.
Wow.
But all of these productions, we've had limited capacity. None of, you know, they're all live and interactive. and none of them are available outside the kind of allotted times. So, I mean, some productions have been more commercially successful than others, but we've charged ticket prices for everything. Yeah, it's been it's been overwhelming, I think, for us. And also because we've managed to reach a global audience, you know, like Operation Elsewhere is very much about Irish mythology. And suddenly we found that the New York Times were covering it, and the Irish Embassy in New York were promoting it as you can't get to Ireland at the moment, but do this instead. So I suppose that's what I mean about them finding a place in other people's lives that we didn't expect, and that being really, and I think, you know, I think we've been very, very focused on that, on like we're doing a piece next weekend, which is called Paddy's Weekend Kitchen, which is fully funded. So we're not, it's the first one we're not charging, we don't have to charge for. And that's...
Is that in honor of Paddy's Day, Paddy's Weekend Kitchen?
Yeah, so that's about...
Patrick's Day, March 17th, everyone.
So it's on at the weekend, and that's 6 food experiences. So there's like a Saturday breakfast, there's an afternoon tea, there's a midnight feast, there's a brunch, there's a picnic, and there's a kind of Sunday dinner. So I think, again, for us, it's about community and where that... what people are missing, and how, and it'll be interesting, you know, when we move out of this pandemic, where the place for digital theatre will be, you know, and we'll remain in contact with audiences about, you know, it's very much been about a dialogue with audiences for us, and continues to be.
Another question?
Okay, I guess.
Hands up.
Yes, another question, please. So, Zoe, I really, I'm sorry about this, but I don't know your background. I don't know if you are a for-profit or a not-for-profit outfit. So if you are inclined towards profit, that's if you're not getting funding to do what you do online, how do you fund this plays? The traditional theater would have permitted that people would walk into a theater, buy tickets, you know, and all. Do you still carry this practice online, or are you funded maybe by the British or the Irish government, and then you're able to carry on productions like this? Thank you.
No, it's a good question, Philip. So we are funded by the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, and we're core funded, and what that means is we are very lucky, and we have enough money to pay salaries, but we have no money for productions. So when we go on tour, we have to, in the real world, we have to get some programming money, because the cost of touring is always massively larger than what we can recoup in terms of fees and guarantees. What we found with digital theatre is that those cost brackets are much closer. So we can put on a digital production much more cheaply, and in many cases, the box office has covered or very close to covered the wages of the actors. And that was a revelation for us, because we're used to losing, you know, we're used to saying, if we do this tour, we have to accept that we will subsidize it or lose, you know, 20,000, 30,000. And in this, we were saying, we'll do this, but the loss will be much, much smaller or non-existent. I mean, we haven't made money out of anything, but we've covered the wages of, I think it's 125 freelance artists working on a range of contracts.
Wow, fantastic. That's good. Well done.
All right, thank you, Zoe. Permit me to just ask, you were talking earlier on about the artists working from their homes. I mean, of course, because of the lockdown, I mean, the simple, straightforward question I'm asking in this regard is, for those artists working for this production, do they have to use their laptops only, or you have some sophisticated, you know, cameras, you know, connected to a laptop? I know you have said you are not a technical person, but I mean, it's just important to look at whether you are safe to do this with just your laptop to a large extent, and maybe with the vMix you mentioned, because you said minicam, and I think Philip was asking, is it minicam or multicam? Somewhere in the chat, if you want to respond to that.
Yeah. So for me, it's very much about what story are we trying to tell and what does it need, you know, in the same way as we all as theatre makers, I think, approach every story. And with Macbeth, I was really interested in showing the Macbeth characters, Lady Macbeth and Macbeth, as if they were kind of under surveillance from the witches. So we started using webcams. So that meant that, like, so one laptop can have, you know, several webcams attached to it, and we would send those. And that would mean that, you know, so my little box would remain the same, but the technical person would keep changing the angle. But also sometimes, like, we would send actors additional devices, so they would join the call on 3 or 4 devices, so that we could simultaneously show 3 or 4 different angles of them, because we're using different devices. So for me, it's very much about what does this story need. And some stories, you know, like in Recipe for Disaster, we wanted to create the impression that these characters wanted to fool everybody into pretending they were on the honeymoon. So we could simultaneously see them as if they were in a screen together, because one was remixed in, but at the same time we showed them just with green screens, and we showed the kind of vulnerability of them actually being on their own, pretending to be with somebody. And that had a fragility that, you know, the kind of showing of how the work is being made has a fragility which I also want to explore. So, like in The Tempest, whenever Prospero says, "This rough magic I hear abjure," we showed all of the actors taking down their green screens in their bedrooms and having a cup of tea. And for me, that was important about deconstructing the tech, as in making it more technical, because I'm very aware that I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not interested in film as a format. You know, I'm interested in theatre, and I'm interested in the physicality and the fragility and the struggle of performance, rather than making it all too glossy.
I would like to find out from you if there's any possibility at all to begin to think of marketing digital theater in a way in which the physical theater has been marketed. And I'm looking at it from the perspective that the call and the notices and the announcements actually go out to a lot of people. Not a lot eventually see it. And in terms of marketing, most advertisers actually want to see the number of clicks. And I'm wondering if in programs, in physical programs, it has been possible to get some companies put some money there. How do you think that a consortium of theater companies in Ireland can begin a concerted negotiation with advertising companies to see whether it is possible to brand just like they do in film? Why are we not thinking about that? That's one question, because I see that it looks like digital theater has come to stay. And a lot of theater directors are doing fantastic work with artists and actors writing their homes. No, I have seen a range of things that is possible. And it looks like digital theater may be a stream, an income stream for theater eventually when the new normal comes. Because if the new normal comes, a theater that will seat 500 might be forced to seat just 100, and then make up the rest with digital theater, which is not global, which is not local, can be global. So at what point will the theater eggheads begin to think long term? And my final contribution or question is, are we documenting all of these processes, all of these things that are coming up, and who is likely to, when we come out of all of this, would we have something to show how we weathered the storm? I don't think I have asked too many questions, do you think?
And so, no, you've raised some really, really interesting issues. So firstly, I know our work has been the subject of several toolkits. and I can get Matt to distribute the link to those. With Exeter University, they created a digital toolkit that was very, very early on, and we're also, I think, in about 3 or 4 academic journals and 2 books at the moment, which is great. So I think the documentation is happening, only in terms of our work I can kind of speak for. And I think this idea, I mean, I suppose I'm not interested in, okay, so if I was a venue, I would say absolutely capitalize on how a remote audience can see what's happening in your venue. I'm not a venue, I'm a maker, and I'm not interested in the digital as a copy of the live. So personally, this is not what makes my heart beat. I'm interested in a remote experience being completely different from a live experience. I love live work, and we're doing live work, but I'm not interested in that live work just being shared. I'm interested in how the remote experience can be an absolutely different thing. So we've just been commissioned to work with a large immersive live installation in London. And we have been asked to make a remote experience, which is not like being there. It's a completely different angle on it, or it probably will feel like being there, but you're coming at it from a completely different perspective, so that it is, and I'm interested in remote theatre, which offers something which is different than the live, I think, and complements the live rather than copies the live. But that's
particularly in terms of that interactive, watching Macbeth and Dear World, a lot of national theatre live where you're watching a play on a stage by somebody, or some of the stuff you've seen is live streaming of a show in a space, such as the stuff that's coming out of the Old Vic, and there was something completely visceral and different and completely engaging, like you're saying. This was a form. It was an attempt to mimic the art form of the cinema with lower production values, or an attempt to mimic the art form of live theatre on stage, but doing it by a screen. It was exploring the potential of the technology to create entirely new aesthetics. And because of that interactive element and that immersive element, and at the same time, the ability to completely change what's happening in and around, and the options that you were able to create in terms of space, it was enthralling. And I think that's why you've been getting so much of a positive response from your audiences, where you like you said, you scheduled 13 runs of The Tempest and you ended up doing 22, and how the Irish Embassy is saying, to all the tourists who would have booked holidays in Ireland this summer, watch Big Telly instead. It's because of an important step. So I think that's a crucial element. But I think the original question we had there from Cole was about marketing. So, I mean, it's great that you've been having the support of groups like the Irish Embassy and so on to sort of promote it. But what has been the characteristics of your marketing strategy? And I would say also over the period of time of lockdown, what have you learned since the first productions to now about what marketing strategies are appropriate and effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So when we started doing The Tempest, and we were doing that 3 weeks into lockdown, so we were very early. So that obviously had a kind of news factor, which is different from now. So suddenly, this show, which we had originally made in Oxford in an industrial estate, was being reviewed by the New York Times and the Guardian and the Financial Times and NBC and CNN. And we were, and we didn't do anything to solicit that apart from do the work. But what that did was, I think, put us in touch with all of those organizations. And we've remained in. Now, we don't get NBC, don't cover every show we do. I wish they did. So we do work with a marketing consultant. I don't think we've done really, really well out of the global market, but I think there's more to be gained. I don't think we've cracked it by any sense, but we are working on that, on how we reach global markets better, and sustain freelance actors for longer. So yeah, I think more thought going into that would be great. But yeah, I think it got picked up by so many agencies early on because of the novelty. Free promotions, but I suppose it was a news story, and a lot of our work has been news stories, and we're getting, so it's not kind of direct marketing in that way. yeah, more work to be done on that.
Thank you, Zoe. And does anybody else have any other comments or questions? Who's got a microphone on? You do.
Okay, I'm here. Can you
Oh,
hear
okay.
me?
We can hear.
Go ahead, Kosi. Kosi, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask the audience reception of this, your work at the Big Telly. At the first time, how was the audience reception? Also, how have you been able to manage time? Because digital theater saves time. So how have you been able to manage time while making your production? The timing and also audience reception. I also wanted to ask you, at first when you started, how did you market this when you started? Just the 3 questions. Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of how we manage time when we rehearse digital theatre, we share the rehearsal process out. So say we would, so in the real world, I would have had 2 weeks to make Macbeth. And what we did was we paid everybody for 2 weeks, but we spread that time out over 4 weeks so that people were part-time. That was partially because it's too much to do a normal rehearsal process on Zoom. It just doesn't work. You know, we never have rehearsals that last longer than 90 minutes. And also to accommodate people who had childcare responsibilities or caring responsibilities in the home, which was brilliant for us to be able to work with people who we wouldn't actually have been able to work with in the real world because they have a young family or caring responsibilities. So we manage everybody's time it's much more part-time over a longer period. I think there are huge advantages to that because people come to every rehearsal having had more time to think about the work. And more time to contemplate it. So I think it creates more thought within the process, which is has been really beneficial. The other one is in terms of marketing. Again, I think a lot of where we got our marketing from was by being 3 weeks into lockdown and being a news story. And I think that kind of launched us into a kind of global marketplace, which we otherwise wouldn't have been in. You know, we definitely wouldn't have been in had we started later. But I think, yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of really honest about that, but we have employed marketing consultants to make sure that we're, you know, one of the top recommended in New York Time Out, and to make sure that those contacts, you know, have been made. And yeah, we've needed a lot of extra support in that area to continue with that kind of connections to the global marketplace.
Thank you, Zoe, and thank you for your question. Kosi, do we have any other comments? Oh, yes, I've seen Courtney's got a hand up. Very polite of Courtney to use the appropriate emoji. Courtney, ask something.
Hello. I think you touched on this a wee bit before, Zoe. Just how do you see this digital theatre for your company in the future when, you know, hopefully things do go back to normal? Do you intend on trying to find a balance between the two, or completely archiving it and, you know, leaving it as a time of lockdown? Or how do you see this fit into the future of Big Telly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be a permanent strand to our work, Courtney. So we're making a digital venue called the Brick Moon. And the Brick Moon will have an auditorium in it where we present work, but it'll also have studio spaces and it'll have a gallery. So my vision for the gallery is that you walk in, you don't walk anywhere, you click on this digital space and there's, you know, maybe 8 artists who are working in their own studios with webcams on that you can talk to about their work. So it's very much a maker space as well as a performance space. You might go into a studio and there might be that day a poet working with a chef and a gardener and a games designer, and we might see so a real opportunity for collaborations, because I think the most exciting thing about for us in all of this has been being able to collaborate. It's been making collaboration kind of quicker, as in you don't have to spend 3 days, you know, in London and get up at 4 in the morning. You can actually just be in that room with that games company or the AR or the AI, you know. So I think the potential of the digital space to host collaboration and unusual collaborations is really, really, really open and really possible. And I don't think that will go away. And I think that new things will come out of that. You know, we're already within our live work, You know, I've always said all the way along when we're making a Zoom show, wouldn't it be great that when you're watching a Zoom show, Macbeth arrives at your door? And it's always been something I've wanted, to mix the live and the virtual, and we're doing that with Right Up Your Street, where there are virtual elements and then live characters and you're like that. So I think it will be a permanent strand to our work.
I don't know if I'd fancy Macbeth.
But I think it will take live work. You know, I don't think we'll ever do a piece of live work again that doesn't have a remote element or remote context. You know, that becomes really exciting, that you might make an installation in a house and a remote audience might be in one room, and you might contact with them and they've got different information and they can tell you different information and they can tell the live audience different information. So I think there's a real exciting possibility for hybrid work.
I just had a flash in my head of the wizard from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Do the whiz. Just all the screens. Cole has another question or a hand up again, I think.
Yeah, I did it the proper way this time. I actually did use it.
Thank you.
Yes, we learn every day because, Zoom has its own new etiquettes and we're trying to cope with it to see how our lives will change Zoom or Zoom will change our lives. But what I'm interested in, I'm looking at a crystal ball of the future. And I want as many of us who can chime into this. I'm looking at the next iteration of theater directors. Especially, I know that Zoe says she's not interested in digitality of theater. She loves the physical theater, and yeah, she's a face-to-face director. So I'm just wondering, what picture do you all have in mind of the next generation theater directors that have to now take into consideration the aesthetics and the limitations of digital theater? What are the kinds of skill sets you think they would bring to it? What new things have you observed so far with directors in physical theater that have had to adapt? What new adaptations have you seen? What new styles of directing have you observed? You know, this is just something that I have a fancy for the future, not because I know what it is, but it's always just nice for those in the present to look into the future. And then when the future comes, of course, it's not going to look like anything we thought about. But hey, what is life if we cannot just imagine a future we haven't been? So let's put that digital theater of the future on the center stage for a few minutes. If anybody has anything to say, I would love to listen to what you have observed and what you think the new theater directors will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cole. So what is the future like for theater directors incorporating the new digital theater aesthetic? What have you noticed? What observations have you had on how people are working and how you think people might be working in the future? Shall we start with you, Zoe?
Yeah, I mean, we've just launched a program of working with emerging artists. And I'm really interested in that, Cole. I think it's fascinating, and I think it will be about fusion of different things. You know, I think for me, I mean, I love face-to-face work, but what I love about digital is when digital does something that face-to-face theatre can't. That's for me when it has its own place. So what I like about edible theatre or cook-along theatre is, you know, to have 100 people all cooking together and eating together is something you can't do in the real world as easily. So I'm interested in digital having its own space is a different thing. One of the initiatives we're just launching is called the bus stop. And that is a frictionless digital interface. So it's like you're at a bus stop, but there is a screen, but somebody's talking to you on that screen, and they can see you and they can pour you a cup of coffee, and they are remote and they can broker remote conversations. So that's a frictionless digital interface, which will be a touring installation in streets. And I think there will be, I think we need to look at other ways where the digital can be embedded into your life. I'm interested in shows where the audience watch on their phone and they watch while they're on a public transport. We have this mobile technology and people don't have to be sat in a room. So let's make stories where you show me Central Park and I show you where I live, and let's look at the potential of the mobile aspect of it to not trap people in their homes and not trap people in front of screens, but to use that to liberate people and to share more worlds. So I am interested in that kind of work.
Cole, just to let you give you a bit of background, before the lockdown, Big Telly were pretty much, well, almost always, maybe Zoe, correct me if I'm wrong, interactive or immersive and working in non-traditional spaces. So this idea of engaging with people in their real worlds and in their real lives and taking people to places that aren't a black box theatre has always been a part of Big Telly's aesthetic. And that sounds like an amazing idea, that bus stop thing. So you could imagine people, people who are on their phones already anyway, just engaging in spontaneous theatre at any point and anywhere. You say you're engaging and mentoring young theatre makers in this format. Could you say a bit more about that, who you've been working with, who you're hoping you'll work with next in the future?
So as part of Brick Moon, our digital space, we're engaging, we're hoping to launch a number of commissioning programs. The first one is for 6 young theatre makers, but we've had interest from game designers and crafters and visual artists and people who work with in a range of ways. So
they have to be young?
They have to be emerging or returning. So somebody, for instance, who has given up theatre to work on, somebody who has given up theatre for a while but wants to get back into the industry, so it's not, they don't have to be young, no.
And would they have to be based in Northern Ireland, or can they be anywhere?
This first tranche of it is for Northern Irish based artists, but we are applying for funding for international commissions as well, because that's the kind of key part of the programme. We haven't got that secured yet.
Good news, Courtney, Kiva and Rose, be getting your applications in. And then everybody else in the next round. Philip, you have a question again.
So Zoe, I wanted to find out if you've had the privilege of conducting a survey, a proper survey, as to what people think about theater as in traditional theater, going to traditional or viewing plays in traditional theater settings, as opposed to viewing plays online. And if you have done such a survey, what do people think? Would they rather go back to physical spaces, or do they think digital is really the place to be and that we should build more on these practices? That's one. Then 2, do you think having directed digital plays in recent times, that the actors are able to really transform or bring emotions to life the way you do with traditional theater? And if not so, what would you think would be the way forward to enhance digital theater in such a way that you could as well be in a physical space when we are watching what you're doing through your laptop or through your TV screen or so? With film, they've been able to do it because practically everything happens in the same space. But here we are now, and you need to transit from one actor to the other using maybe vMix or the various multi-cameras they are using. How are we able to still achieve this? Thank you.
So we haven't conducted any surveys, Philip. We've been too busy to do any of that. However, there have been surveys conducted. I think We Are Thrive, Matt, have done a survey about audiences in online theatre here. I don't know how comprehensive that is, but I would imagine there are a lot of kind of surveys being undertaken at the moment about people's choice within digital theatre and traditional theatre. I don't, in terms of actors, I don't think digital theatre is for everyone. We've worked with some actors that it has been a disaster. The digital experience for them has not worked. And I think, like Big Telly, we tend to work a lot with makers rather than straight actors. So for me, the more traditional the actor, the less this context will work for them. Whereas we would work a lot with makers who thrive on the democratization of the kind of design process and the technical process, I think. Who love that ability to come in and say, look, I've found a way that I can hold this ornament up to the camera and it can filter the light. You know, we use a lot of practical things as well as technical things. And the kind of makers we've been working with thrive on that. And that's the kind of artists that I think will thrive best in this digital environment. But like I say, the more traditional the actor, the less it works for them. But then very traditional actors would have struggled with the kind of work Big Telly does anyway, because we're not in a theatre. They don't have a dressing room. It's not structured like that. The audience are vocal. You know, it's a different kind of context and suits a different kind of artist.
Can I jump in just 1 minute? Matt, can I?
No problem at all, Carly. No problem.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just with posting
I know somebody talked about survey a minute ago, and I just did a paper on using the reception theory for reading storytelling, digital storytelling. And you know that if you're very conversant with the African storytelling, the feedback from the audience is a very important component of storytelling. So what I did in that work was to look at, well, digital, because it was asynchronous. The delivery was asynchronous and the audience. So I went back to look at the electronic footprints to see what people were saying as my feedback. And then I found out that the audience, even in an asynchronous production, were still talking to themselves. They were still sharing knowledge, and there were clicks, there were likes, and I was able to pontificate a little on what each of those meant. So some of the works that you have already on YouTube can be one of the ways of monitoring what people are saying about the work, because people will go back to go and see some of those things later. And it gives you an idea of their feeling about the production, and there will still be charts. And it's everything. The only thing is that it's not instantaneous. I just thought I dropped that in.
That's great, Carly. Would you be able to share with us that publication?
Yeah. Talking about survey, I think sometime last year, in the midst of the lockdown, we conducted one. It's not a very elaborate survey per se. We were going to premiere one of our live performance, not a live digital performance though, already recorded. And so we decided to ask questions about people's preference, talking about survey, and of about 83 respondents to that survey, asking whether they prefer digital theater, whether they would like to return to the live theater, you know, and all of that. At least I think we had about 78 who would rather, I mean, from Nigeria. This is just within Nigeria in terms of whatever. About 78 of them would want to wait and prefer to stick to live theater, physical, as against, you know, digital theater. But I heard Zoe saying earlier on, I mean, that's about the survey we conducted, that's simply amongst us here. I heard Zoe talking earlier on about the possibilities of productions. I think that was in response to Professor Colley's question. A situation where you are performing, say, at your Big Telly Theatre Company in Northern Ireland, and then you have a co-audiencing kind of approach where other people anywhere in the world. And given the question Prof asked earlier on, I think, to me, that is the future of theater, and that is the direction we need to be looking towards, and as well building skills that would help achieve that future. Yeah, like you said, we don't know that future. I am particularly interested because whichever way we look at it, even when we return to the old normal, even when we return to the old normal, it is as sure as anything that there are audience members who would prefer to sit back in their homes and join, whatever production is going on. So whatever we can do, I mean, which is a very strong interest for us in this end, to ensure that we build capacity in that direction, because a lot of the things, maybe not to everybody, a lot of the experiences you have shared here, I mean, goes a long way. And that's the kind of thing we are interested in, to see that we are able to build capacity just in case we have this kind of situation. In the last 1 year, more than 80% of, I mean, not empirically proved anyway, but more than about 80%, I should say, of theater practitioners on the African continent, or maybe I should limit it to Nigeria, who are sitting down and waiting for things to get better so that we can return to the theater. Whereas in other parts of the world, even here, at least we had a couple of drive-in theaters and all of that, just, So I think it's important, given Professor Colley's question, that we begin to look in that direction. Now, you also mentioned that you are building a tech, kind of, I can't remember what you call it now. I am particularly interested in that and what that will feel like, where we are able to bridge, the divide between live performance ongoing and digital theater, somebody on the train, somebody somewhere on the mountain, and yet you are seeing what is going on in the theater anywhere in the world. I think that is the kind of future we should be envisioning for the theater. Moving on.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jerry. And also, I suppose it's about the local and the global. Like, if it was a piece, an Irish piece, I'd probably choose to go to it live. But the thought that I could go to a digital piece of African storytelling, unbelievable that would be accessible to me. So it's about how we as theatre tourists can cross the world and have experiences that we can't otherwise have. I think that's really, really exciting. Yeah, so.
Sorry, Zoe, because
for digital storytelling.
Jerry, a second.
Just a minute, please. For digital storytelling, I know
you said you couldn't remember the name of the scene.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask Zoe to say the name of that thing again so that I could type it into the chat box.
Yes.
Yeah, so the project we're mounting is called The Bus Stop, and it's based on, I could probably find what it's based on. It's based on an advertising program. So it's like you're sitting at a bus stop, and the panel that you thought was just an advertising screen has a live connection with you. So they say, where are you going? What are you doing? You can talk to them in the bus stop.
And the mentoring program was called?
Let me see if I can find a link to it. I can send you a link to it.
If you tell me, I'll just type it in so I can remember it.
Yeah, it's in Norwegian though, so.
Okay.
Okay.
I can find it in 1 second.
Very quickly, before we take Living Green, because there's a hand up, talking about digital storytelling, for instance, we have Shewo Dukoya in the house, Auntie Shine Shine. Back here, we run a weekly storytelling session, which is called Story Time with Auntie Shine Shine, on a weekly basis. And I mean, it's gradually growing into what parents and young people are beginning to to accept, even though it was not the normal thing. When you talk about storytelling, everybody wants to sit around the grills, around the storyteller, and share experiences. But with the lockdown, I mean, that was devised, and it's been it's been growing. So I think that anytime you are chanced on a Sunday at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, you could also check in and see a little bit of that. Before I call Living Green for a question, let me just mention that Mr. Israel Ebo is in the house with us, and that's the national president of NNIRCEP, National Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners, is in the house with us. So, Living Green, can we take your question? Living Green?
Chinelo?
Chinelo.
You there, Chinelo? By the way, in the meantime, Zoe has sent me a clip to a YouTube a link to a YouTube clip about the bus project. Share it with them.
Yeah, go on. Janelle, go ahead.
Hello. Oh. So I wanted to ask Zoe two things.
Can you type? Janelle, can you type?
Janela, you might need to type into the chat box.
Yeah.
In the meantime, shall we play this?
Digital theatre being professional theatre. So I want to ask exactly what did they find difficult about working with digital makers, right? So what is actually by makers? What finds what to digital theatre?
Did you catch that?
Hello, should I repeat myself?
Yeah, I think it's clearer now. Repeat yourself or probably type. Your audio is yeah. So I guess you need to type.
My question was
Here we go.
some actors theater. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. So she mentioned some actors not being able to work with digital theater. So I wanted to ask to find out from her what exactly do they find difficult about working with digital theater? And then she mentioned also working more with makers. What does she mean by makers? Who found this easier to adapt and to explore new areas of theater? So, I mean, what does she mean by those two? Because she explained further.
Okay, yes, thank you, Living Green. So first of all, what I mean by makers is when we work within our within the real world and within the digital world, we devise a lot of work. So we're asking people to invest in the entire concept and to help build the entire story and the entire piece of work rather than just act their roles. So we're not necessarily casting an actor to play a particular character. We're casting a maker to help make this piece of work, maybe without knowing what role they will play within it. And so we're asking people. Sorry, you're breaking up a wee bit. I hope I'm answering this right. So yes, that's what I mean by maker. So sometimes within a maker team.
I think Chinelo has responded, but because of the time lag thing, it's going to then suddenly spooling quickly. Sorry, Chinelo.
Hello, I'm still here.
Hi, yes, so that's what I mean by maker. So sometimes we approach a piece of work and in the room would be a composer, a choreographer, some writers, some actors, some designers, and what we would, we might approach a piece of work and say, so is this piece going to be puppet led or dance led or music led or text led or a silent piece? We kind of would have a lot of skills in the room and then we approach the work quite collaboratively. Whereas with more traditional theatre, when I direct plays as a freelance director, it's more about deciding on the play and casting an actor to play a particular role. And what I mean about the digital theatre is digital theatre puts more pressure on the actor to also make technical changes. So you've got to change your own backgrounds. You might have to put up a green screen. You might have to change your audio settings. You might have to plug in a webcam. And it involves you as a maker not able to simply focus on the role, but also with an amount of technical input as well. So for instance, there was a bit in Macbeth where I said to the actor playing Macbeth, there was a piece where we had Lady Macbeth walking into the sea and he was speaking over it. And I said, do you want to just record that? And he said, no, it's really important for me, for my character and the journey that I say that live. And he was right, and it was the right artistic choice. And then I gave him a note on how he was saying it live. And he said, yes, I'll try, but I'm also changing my costume, changing my virtual background, putting a box on top of the screen to make it look like a window. So he was doing all of these things whilst emoting about a text. So that's what I mean, that it involves a level of multitasking, which doesn't suit everybody.
Yeah, very correct. Wow.
Thank you, Zoe. Do we want to play? It's less than 2 minutes long, the clip about the bus stop project that Zoe mentioned. I could share it with you now.
Yeah, just to clarify, this isn't our project is different from this, but this is what inspired our project.
Okay.
Hei. Vil du ta en kopp kaffe sammen med meg? Vil du ta en kopp kaffe sammen med meg? Bare kom frem. Hei.
Hei.
Vil du ta en kaffe sammen med meg?
Ja, det kan jeg vel alltids.
Ja, jeg skal skjenke i til deg, jeg.
Se her, ja, kommer det kaffe.
Ja, kommer det? Ja.
Ja, det går det.
Takk, takk. Det holder, det holder.
Vi kan starte med en liten skål da.
Skål.
Skål.
Ja, hvorfor valgte du å gi meg kaffe i dag da? Det var jo veldig hyggelig.
Jeg sitter jo som sagt her og synes det er koselig å prate med noen da.
Jeg liker å synge. Jeg synger i kor.
Synge?
Ja.
Skal vi ta en liten trall?
Har du noen hobbyer nå? Er det noe du gjør nå?
Jeg har vel ikke noe hobby akkurat nå. Jeg drev med karate for en del år tilbake da. Så... Livet er ikke det verste man har.
Og litt er kaffen klar.
Nå kommer visst bussen din, tror jeg.
Ja, nei, jeg kan ta neste, det går fint.
Ok, det var hyggelig av deg.
Thank
So you were inspired by that particular idea.
Yeah, so we're now making an art project around that. And
sorry.
So I suppose that's what I mean about where the digital meets the real world, meets hybrid. For me, that's a way that the digital, you know, if I have an actor who's brokering conversations, that actor can say to people in the bus stop, would you like to have a conversation with Doris, who's in the nursing home down the way? So we can broker, or with Jerry, who's in Nigeria. So we can broker conversations that might not have happened. And I think coming out of, so I suppose that's what I mean about the digital being able to respond to the world we're in. That's what we want to do coming out of lockdown. Coming out of the pandemic is kind of create a way of using the digital to broker new connections and to make connections in communities.
Brilliant. Thanks, Zoe. Auntie Shine, Shun, I saw you had a hand up a minute ago. Do you want to say something? Are you still there?
Auntie Shine, yeah, she's here. Auntie Shine, the storyteller.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Compliments of the day, depending on what time it is in your part of the world. I was actually just applauding the that we were shown. Thank you, Zoe. Jerry shared earlier, we do digital storytelling here on every day. It's been on for almost a year now. And it's growing, you know, it was a totally new thing when we began it. And it wasn't usual. Telling was about a storyteller with people, physical children or a physical audience gathered around them. But because of the lockdown, and you know, we just tried it out, and it's catching on gradually. So it's interesting to be able to hear the great strides that and everything that you have done at your hand. I applaud you. Thank you.
So thank you, Auntie Shine, and Eka's hand is up.
You want the mic, Eka?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. I watched the clip and I was so emotional just a minute ago.
Yeah.
It was so, it's the fact that she had to, she was willing to let her boss, she was willing to miss her boss just to keep the, this is something, it's so human-centered. It's something that everyone should see. The simple basic things, I think somehow because of, I don't know, life has caught up with everyone and we fixate on the wrong things, but this should, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, and this clip kind of brought to fore a lot of the emotion things I talk about, things like how life should be, doing the simple basic things for others, in essence helping yourself, and then it makes the world a better place. It makes the world a better place regardless of age, gender, despite our differences, our racial differences, our age differences, everything. But it just I really must commend you. I really must commend you, Zeaton. More power to you and your team and your crew. And I hope you go from strength to strength. I hope to see bigger productions in future. I'd love to be part of it too.
Thank you so much. I think Matt's going to put my email address in the chat, which would be great. But I mean, I felt the same as you when I first saw that. I cried my eyes out, and then since then I just became fanatical about getting funding to make it happen. And now we are able to make it happen. And but I also think, like, imagine sitting at a bus stop in a tiny little town in Northern Ireland, and you hear an African story. Like, for me, that's what this country, which struggles with diversity, needs, and needs opportunities for that to happen in a way where people are kind of safe and making little, dipping their toes in the water of connection, without it being incredibly confrontational. So for me, and we're now looking at, could, if that happened in every bus stop, could that make women safer? Could it be used as a tool for public consultation? Could it be, it feels like the digital has got the potential to make our lives better, in those kind of ways. And let's look at how, because I think we hear a lot about how it replaces humanity and replaces people. And I think something like that, as a way to broker a lot of conversations, and make people connected, just has so much potential. And I feel the same about you. I feel so passionate about it, and so that I want to make that happen.
Auntie Shine coming at you from a bus stop in Port Stewart. That'd be mine.
But you know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be amazing though? That's doable, that's achievable. And that's what's incredible, that you can have that conversation.
Yeah, way cool. Way cool. I sound like a teenager. From the 90s. Does anybody else have any further comments or questions for Zoe or for anybody else who is here? Zoe, maybe you have some questions for some of the people who are attending from Nigeria.
Well, I love everything I'm hearing about what you're doing, and I really love this to be an opportunity to stay in contact. And if there is a way that people do want to be involved in the bus stop project or in Brick Moon, which is our digital venue, please do, email me. Brick
Moon, that was the one I was looking for before. Brick Moon was the mentoring.
Brick Moon is our digital venue. So, for me, that's the opportunity to meet people like you is what it's all about. That's why it's developed, and that's why it's grown, because you meet inspirational people you wouldn't otherwise meet, and you want to share that with the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Zoe. I don't know if Mr. Israel Ebo is still on the call. So we could just have you weigh in on this. Mr. Israel Ebo, NNIRCEP president, are you still there? Okay, so Matt, let's roll on, and we know Zoe has got to run anytime from now because of Brick Moon, the digital venue. Okay, Brick Moon. Yeah, thanks for that. So Matt, We would be very much interested in looking at what we could do together. I mean, in terms of digital theater, it would be a very good learning curve, for some of us who are greenhorns when it comes to digital theater production. And like we said, this is the way the world is going now, and so we need to begin to reinvent ourselves. We need to begin to reinvent ourselves, and this will go a very long way. And I think that when things come to normal, some of us should think of maybe a short residency in Northern Ireland to be immersed in what you are doing. It's not impossible. Let things come back to normal. Thank you so much, Zoe. Matt, we're next. Yeah. Take it over. Oh,
has attended the session. We've said, would you like to have another one of these kinds of things, whether it's a practical workshop, whether it's meeting somebody to share their work with us, whether it's to just have a discussion about a particular issue, like the political situation or mental health, or what it's like to be an artist under COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, have any ideas or any preferences about what we would like to do next. Just for instance, one thing that we did early on, I think, was I ran a workshop or a short workshop based on some of the work we've been doing with the Health Action Company for how to use drama, games and exercises to teach communication skills and resilience for nurses and other health workers. We have the possibility of people who could talk us about their puppetry work. I have some very good friends who are puppeteers. I'm sure you guys know plenty of people in Nigeria who are excellent puppeteers. It was originally led by the students we had, because originally it was an exchange between some students that I'd been working with and some students that Jerry knew. So I would say, the students or the young graduates, the emerging artists that we still have with us here, Rose and Kiva. Any ideas from anybody about, well, first of all, does anybody want to do this kind of thing again? It's just something Jerry and I do on the odd Saturday when we have a bit of time. It's a funded project. It's not a research project. It's just a forum for exchange. So would you like to do something again? And if so, what ideas would you have for that? And that's opening the floor to anybody. And if you can't talk to us directly, you might want to put it in the chat box. I'm seeing chat box messages coming through. Yes, there's at least 2 people, 3 people. And so, well, is 3 enough, Jerry? And Zoe, you're probably too busy. And Zoe needs to head off because she's got a show to put on. Operation Elsewhere. Are tickets available to people from Nigeria for Operation Elsewhere, or is it sold out?
I'm sure they are.
Operation Elsewhere, and they book them through the Big Telly website or somewhere?
Through Young at Art, Matt.
Through Young at Art. Okay. Operation Elsewhere tickets available through Young at Art. So you need to download. Thanks a million, Zoe. Thank you so much for.
No problem. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you so much for being so welcoming and lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Hopefully it'll be the first of many conversations and collaboration.
Sure.
I'd like that immensely. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Zoe. That's brilliant. Cheers.
Bye, Zoe. Bye. Okay. Thank you, everyone here as well. It's another well-received session, and it's going to happen again and again. Since we don't have people suggesting what they would like to see next, you mentioned puppetry, and that's a couple of people have been asking what's happening with puppetry. I think it would be a bad idea, to look at in that direction for our next session, unless we get some other, better idea from our participants to say this is what they like to have the next time. So it wouldn't be a bad idea. So one, either source for someone who has successfully done digital theater in Nigeria, so that we can have a follow-up. Since we have a Northern Ireland version now, we can have someone who also have done, I am seeing puppetry will be brilliant. So I think it's looking like puppetry will have it. Okay, so that will be determined, and then we will get back to you since we have your contact. Thank you so much for being part of this, session. At the beginning of it, we simply call it Arojah Ulster, and then as it grows, I believe we are going to be able to do a lot more, and probably in the nearest future, if Zoe's programming for the year allows, see whether we can, have a very short piece of production in collaboration with Big Telly. I mean, that's something we could start working at, and then we'll get back at you. Thank you very much. So, okay, I think that we have Ugochukwu's hand up. Let's take that, and then you
have a hand up.
Yes.
Yep.
Ugochukwu's hand is up. Then Matt, you can take it over from there. Ugo.
Okay. Ugochukwu.
Hello, Ugochukwu. Your hand is up.
But your microphone is not on. You might want to turn your microphone on.
Ugo, turn your mic on. Okay, so Matt, I guess you should just.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Shall we close then?
I should think so.
Oh, we have another.
Puppetry.
Aaron Torley, who is a master puppeteer based here in Derry, who has done quite a few online shows recently and has a company called Banyan Theatre Company, B-A-N-Y-A-N. And also maybe Matt Smith, a friend of mine who is a kind of practitioner and lecturer in applied puppetry. So using puppetry with people in prison, with youth groups, with medical simulation training as well, and so on. Puppetry in community contexts as well. So I'll chat to Matt and Karen Torley about doing something with us. Jerry, would you have any suggestions for puppetry from Nigeria?
Yes, we have Dr. Oshosanya, whom I have actually spoken with, that we need to have a session on puppetry with him. So we have Dr. Oshosanya. I will see if we can get one more person, but Dr. will be very much willing and ready to do this with us.
Oh, and Chanelo says she's heard about the series Derry Girls. Yes, I live in Derry, and the drama department of the Ulster University is in Derry as well. So if you watch the TV series Derry Girls on Netflix, you can see my house. And the woman who plays the character called Michelle, the one with the black curly hair, the mouthy one. I was in a pantomime with her 10 years ago. She was one of the chorus girls and the ring bearer. She understudied to the ring bearer, and I was the Emperor of China in a production of Aladdin in 2009. Have a few connections with girls, and also my daughter, Keegan.
I'll go check it out.
Goes to the school that the school is based on. So the writer of the series, Lisa McGee, went to Thornhill College and based the play series. And that's where my daughter goes. So yeah, it's Derry Girls. We're all up in the Derry Girls. We have a hand from.
Hello.
How's this hand?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, I want to appreciate you all for this time. It's a wonderful time out with you all. Thank you, Mr. Jerry, for sharing the link.
You're welcome.
I think I enjoyed the best of my time here today. I don't know. Here in Nigeria, I don't think the students also have been so much exposed to digital theater. I know we have a theater of intermediality being used in the theater for theater productions in just few schools and all that are having focus on using digital driven equipment to produce theatrical stuffs. So I would like to also ask, I don't know how it will be, but Mr. Jerry, I don't know. Our festival is coming up. I don't know how it would be. I would love to have someone share this experience at the Nigerian University's Theatre Arts Festival coming up in April. So I don't know anyway, but it will be a very nice thing to do to expose the students to digital theatre and not just theatre of intermediality, which is not so versatile in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
All right, Kosi, thank you for that. Let's talk. I really can't remember the date now. I know it's usually April. Is it still going to be April? Let's talk about the date and look at what is possible. But whatever would be possible, I know you need to understand that it's still going to be virtual since there is no traveling much for now, and then time is a bit short to pick up anybody and ask to, so let's talk about it afterwards to get back to that on what is possible. Yeah, it's not possible at all. Let's talk about it once we are off the call. I think the president also mentioned it earlier about the festival, so we'll get to know what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
bro.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mats.
Thank you, Kirsty.
You really called my name very well. I'm surprised.
He's been calling many Nigerian names now, so
I'm trying. Some of the Irish names are pretty tricky too.
Yeah.
I'm only Australian. I can't understand things.
All right.
So that's brilliant. All right. Well, I'll talk to my people. You talk to your people. We'll see if we can get another session on puppetry together. Kosi's suggestion about some kind of contribution on digital theatre for that students' conference sounds like an excellent idea.
Yeah.
And also, Zoe, Jerry and I have already had a conversation with Zoe and Big Telly because she's interested in applying for a British Council grant to develop long-term collaboration with international theatre companies and theatre makers. So they weren't successful at that point, partly because it wasn't an established relationship. So having had this conversation, Zoe's offer of wanting to work with theatre companies in Nigeria is on the table. It's sincere. And as you've heard, she's pretty well connected and the company has some pretty high level exposure internationally. So I would really strongly suggest it'd be a good idea to follow up on that opportunity, because I'd say if Big Telly collaborates with the Arojah Royal Theatre and storytelling in Nigeria, it will be something that will happen. And it will be something that I think would be very exciting. So, and we can say we were here on the day it all started.
Yeah, sure.
So, yet another wonderful Nigerian Northern Ireland cultural exchange. I don't know, Jerry, it just seems to keep on happening and keep on being great. So there must be something guiding us. It is a Saturday morning, so I will say, well, possibly it's probably fair enough to maybe have a 20-minute early mark. So if we'll sort of maybe now, or Chinela, did you want to say something there? I saw your screen light up for a second. Chinela, Living Green.
Hello.
Hello, Chinela.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I wanted to ask the Nigerian student person, when exactly is the festival and if it's going to be online?
Kosi, festival, and when is it going to be online?
Kosi, can you answer to that? Hello, Kosi.
Kosi, microphone's not on.
I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on that.
Hello.
Okay, is it?
Here he is.
Okay. The festival is going to be taking place this month of April, in the next month, from 25th of April to the 1st of May.
Okay, 25th of April to the 1st of May.
Yeah, so it will take place in
online or hybrid?
No, not online. It is physical, from 25th of April to the 1st of May in Abia State, that is Southeast Nigeria.
Okay.
So, yeah, it is taking place physically and with all the COVID-19 protocols and all that. it's been on hold since last year.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
What's the name of the festival, Kosi?
Nigerian Universities Theatre Arts Students. No, Nigerian Universities Theatre Arts Festival. Nigerian
University Theatre Arts
Universities Festival, yes. Nigerian Universities Theatre Arts Festival.
And what's the name of the state in Southeast Nigeria?
Abia, A-B-I-A, Abia State.
A-B-I-A.
Bokosi.
Yes, a Gregory University.
Bokosi.
Gregory University.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
I can hear
you. Yeah, if you guys have held up this festival for a year and you want somebody from Ireland, like maybe Zoe, to come talk to you guys, why are you guys not making like a virtual event? Because that would make sense.
I believe some parts of the festival will be of a virtual event where students will learn. Those that cannot make it down because of the COVID-19 protocol, they are trying to streamline the number of participants for this year's festival, just to cushion the effects of the pandemic and the COVID, so they don't expose more students to that. So some parts of the festival are going to be virtual, and I believe something like this also on digital theater can just go the same way it just went today on Zoom.
Okay.
So who do I talk to if I want to talk more about the festival, if I want to know more?
Okay, I will connect you to the local organizing committee chairman, who is also a lecturer. Dr. Skillful is a lecturer at the hosting university, Gregory University.
Okay.
I think you should also talk to the current president. I mean, so as you're talking to the host, you should talk to the president, your successor, I guess.
Yes.
Anthony Ugu.
Yes.
Living Group, we can talk about that for sure. I have some of those of the content you will need.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Shall we say goodbye then and enjoy the rest of your weekend?
Yeah. Goodbye,
everyone. Today.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Yeah. See you again next time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've saved a document version of the chat, so I can share that with you as well, Jerry, and we can have everybody's emails.
Yeah. And
all right, I'm going to go now.
So Philip, I salute you.
I salute you too, Philip. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next time.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.